Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Force here with my top 5 games of 2012. Now that 2013 has arrived, I thought this was the perfect time to take a look at the last year in games and talk about my favorite titles. So with that, let's jump right into my top 5 games of 2012. Coming in at number 5 is XCOM Enemy Unknown, a game that managed to get me into a genre I had zero interest in the past. Now with the exception of trading card games, I really never enjoyed turn-based gameplay, but XCOM brought such a unique mix of elements to the table that had me playing ravenously for weeks on end. XCOM Enemy Unknown is the tactical turn-based strategy game that was developed by Firaxis as a reboot of the XCOM franchise. The game tasks players with defending Earth against an alien invasion by engaging in skirmishes around the world using small groups of specialized soldiers. Combat in the game always felt rewarding as a result of the incredible difficulty even on the most basic of settings. Overall, the animations were smooth and the environments unique and varied. And while the game's combat would have been enough, there's a lot more to XCOM that kept me engaged. Between base management, trying to keep the nations of the world from panicking, and intercepting UFOs, I constantly felt like there was something critical for me to be doing, and that if I failed, the world would end. To top it all off, the game offers a generous 30+ hours of single-player gameplay with tremendous replayability and multiplayer mode as well. If it wasn't for a few game-breaking bugs, XCOM would have easily made it higher on the list, but nevertheless, it comes in at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is Dishonored, a game that proves stealth can actually be done right. In the past, most stealth games always punished you for making a single wrong move, which instead of making you feel like a badass assassin, always made you feel like a bumbling idiot. Dishonored, on the other hand, heavily rewards stealth gameplay, but allows you to still engage in combat and kick some ass if you slip up. Getting spotted doesn't mean you have to end the mission, just that you'll have to wreck some face head-on instead. Dishonored is a stealth action game that was developed by Arcane Studios. The game takes place in the steampunk city of Dunwall, where you play as Corvo, a framed loyal bodyguard to a slain empress. Combat in Dishonored can be quite varied as a result of the sheer freedom the game gives you. You can play as a stealthy assassin always lurking in the shadows, taking enemies by surprise, or you can play as an in-your-face combatant, avoiding sneaking altogether. The game offers an array of different skills, abilities, and weapons, all of which enhance the feeling of being a master assassin. For its great handling of stealth and non-stealth combat, along with the freedom of choice and the ability to make you feel like a badass, Dishonored makes it to number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3 is Far Cry 3, which prior to its launch I wasn't expecting much from this game and sort of wrote it off as just another FPS. But then I played it. Far Cry 3 does a whole lot more than just give you a gun and targets to shoot. A large open world with danger around every corner and randomly generated events makes simply moving from point A to B an adventure. Far Cry 3 is an open world first-person shooter from Ubisoft and is the third installment in the Far Cry series. In the game, you play as Jason Brody, a reluctant hero who is on a mission to rescue his friends from pirates. While less ambitious than its predecessor, this game substitutes lofty goals with near-perfect execution of what it does attempt. The story in Far Cry 3 starts off strong but unfortunately takes a left turn halfway through and leaves much to be desired. While following the main quest line, it does offer some rewarding experiences, such as the Potfield mission. The game really shines in the random events that take place while exploring the island. Between hunting wildlife, taking over pirate outposts, and capturing radio towers, something is bound to go wrong and leave you with a great story to tell your friends. The game also features a competent co-op campaign and competitive multiplayer, although both those things take a backseat to the main game. Far Cry 3 was a pleasant surprise this year, and if it wasn't for issues with the story, may very well have been at the top of my list. My number 2 favorite game of this year was The Walking Dead. Now, if you had asked me last January if I'd be interested in a point-and-click adventure game set in the overdone zombie apocalypse, I would have told you to GTFO. But then came Telltale Games' The Walking Dead, an engrossing experience that had myself and many others captivated all year. The Walking Dead is a 5-part adventure game that follows the story of Lee, Clementine, and their group of survivors during a zombie apocalypse. The game starts off with Lee, a convicted murderer, are thrust into the role of caretaker of the 8-year-old Clementine. As the story progresses, you gain and lose group members to both zombies and other humans. While portions of the game do offer character control, most of the Walking Dead story is done in cutscenes with dialogue options, making it less of a game and more of an interactive story. However, the tense feeling resulting from the state of the world, along with the character relationships, make this a story worth experiencing. Issues with save files made playing each new episode more of a headache than it should have been, but a little bit of research led to a workable solution. Although it is one of the least gamey games I played this year, a phenomenal story with characters I cared about puts Walking Dead at number 2 on my list. And my number 1 game for 2012 goes to Borderlands II, the game that took the original Borderlands formula and polished it to perfection. Although the game was said to simply give more Borderlands and not much else, as a gamer who never played the original, the experience Borderlands 2 did have to offer had me hooked. Borderlands 2 is a first-person shooter with RPG elements developed by Gearbox Software. The game has a very distinct cel-shaded art style and is set in the varied world of Pandora. The story takes place 5 years after the events of the original game and starts with 4 new Vault Hunters being sabotaged by the game's antagonist, Handsome Jack. Although Handsome Jack turns out to be more annoying than anything else, Pandora is filled with plenty of other interesting and downright hilarious characters. The gameplay is simplistic but addicting. Shoot bad guys, collect loot. Open chest to collect loot. Kill bosses, and you got it, collect loot. Oh, and did I mention the loot? With a random loot generator, the game offers billions of combinations for guns and equipment for your character, making you want to shoot every enemy and loot every chest just to see what drops. Aside from the addictive nature of random loot, the combat is snappy and responsive enough to be rewarding on its own. Shooting bad guys just feels good. With a lengthy campaign and co-op to enhance the experience, Borderlands 2 hands down was my most played game of this year, and for this, it makes it to number 1 on my list. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, those are my top 5 games of 2012. Once again, number 5 to XCOM Enemy Unknown, number 4 is Dishonored, number 3 at Far Cry 3, number 2 to The Walking Dead, and number 1 at Borderlands 2. I also wanted to mention a few other games that I thought were of note, and those would be Diablo 3, Chivalry Medieval Warfare, Darksiders 2, and Mark of the Ninja. Those are 4 games that I've also played quite a bit of this year, and were pretty close to making the cut, but unfortunately, I just didn't think they were quite as polished and as good as the top 5 games. Also, honorable mention goes to Smite. That wouldn't make it on the list. It probably would have been one of my top 5 this year, but the fact is it's still in beta and not actually released, so it may make it to my top 5 list of 2013, but it was still one of my most played games of this year. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this look at my 5 favorite games of 2012. Really excited for 2013. Lots of great games planned to come out, and also we might be seeing the next generation of consoles, so it should be a pretty exciting year for video game fans. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep watching and keep owning.